the goalkeeping situation's been a bit of a mess for a good few years now with the whole Henderson, De Gea handling, and that was Solskjaer's fault. We've written at length about that. David Raya is a name that's obviously been quite heavily linked with the club, but for me, he's not good enough to be a first choice goalkeeper at Manchester United. And his performances recently have backed that up for me. Samuel, your report was kind of angled on 5 players that you think started and should not be at the club next season: Maguire, De Gea, wan-bissaka, Sancho and Martial. Martial came off injured again, didn't he, of course, and inevitably it seems. Out of those 5 players, would you be surprised to see more than one leave? Because when you look at that list, obviously Maguire's days seem numbered, the negotiating the deal with De Gea, but beyond that, I can't see any takers for Martial. I think Sancho will stay. I think wan-bissaka will probably stay as well.
It has got the makings of the season-long loans, take their wages off the books for the whole season, because that is a relatively sustainable way of mitigating the financial issues that clubs now face. But with Martial, given his contract, and that he's got 1 year left, and then there's the option of an additional year, they've got to be as proactive as possible in trying to get him off the books permanently this summer. Jadon Sancho, he's just hiding at the moment. That he is an absolute shadow for a penetrative and probing winger who was so in demand at Dortmund. I don't know what he's playing at sometimes. And when the team dropped last time, see Rashford on the bench and Sancho starting, you think, okay, the earliest point that Rashford will come on here will be at half time because Sancho might be underperforming. And unfortunately, the script was too predictable with Sancho. He played like someone who's on borrowed time. I think he ducked out of one challenge as well. Manchester United's just too big a club for him. There's no shame in him admitting that. There's no shame in Manchester United signing him. He was a player who had the qualities that were what United needed at that time, and he was a very worthy signing. But it's not worked out. I mean, if United are to truly restore standards, they need to get back to this way of operating where, okay, if you don't perform in your first year, you can bed in the second year. A bit like City have done with their players. How many Guardiola signings have underwhelmed in the first season and been brilliant in the second season? Grealish, the most recent example. There's been Riyad Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, John Stones. Yeah, the list goes on. And then if you don't hack it in the second season, if you don't cut it, then you cut loose. That's what United need to get back in the habit of doing. But then you look at Anthony Martial, who's been there for 8 seasons. This is 8th season for him. He's had 2 truly good seasons. So a quarter of his time at Manchester United has been an individual success. I mean, how has that been tolerated? Because the club pandered to this player power culture. And after Pogba, Marshall was the one who was indulged the most. And look how it turns out with Pogba, who was, just such a toxic presence at times. He undermined the manager and publicly rebelled in his sacking on Twitter. Marshall's agent undermined two separate Manchester United managers as well. You can't allow that. You've got to have standards that go beyond the pitch. And it is a lot easier said than done because of the situation in United, where you've got these players on good wages, on longish contracts, and what profile of club would go for those players. I think with wan-bissaka and Maguire might be easier to ship than the forwards, because you can see, for example, can you see Maguire at West Ham? Could you see wan-bissaka at West Ham? Yes. There are certain Premier League clubs where United know they're going to make a loss on those players. They would have known when they signed Maguire. There would not have been any resale value because he was 26 at the time he signed. It was a record fee for the defender at £80 million. He was on a 6-year contract. So they knew when they signed him, there was never any plan to make anything back on him. With wan-bissaka, they saw him as long-term. I mean, maybe 4 years has been too long with him. But given that Ten Hag wants a right-back still, and a right-back is pretty low down the list of priorities for United in the summer, then they have to get one off the books. Dallow's out of contract next year, so you can't rule out the possibility of him going. But he is the more complete right-back than wan-bissaka, even though Dallow's form has been pretty poor for the last 4 months. Wan-bissaka, again last night, there's no willingness to attack. And Ten Hag mentioned character 3 times in post-match press conference. And I think that's what we underestimate going into these games, the character of certain players. When you look at Marshall, Sancho, Maguire, wan-bissaka on that team sheet, none of them have the character to be a success as a Manchester United player. And that is why when it came to the summer and the signings they made, character was as important as qualities, and that has to still be the case going forward.
I think with Marshall, I'd be surprised if anyone looks to take him on a permanent deal. Maybe another club with a loan. Ironically, it was Sevilla, wasn't it, last season?
Can't complete 90 minutes and can't score 20 goals in a season. It's a tough sell.
Yeah, you're not going to make an offer, a permanent offer for a player that can't complete 90 minutes. I actually can't remember the last time. It's over 2 years, I think, isn't it, since he last played a full game, which is a professional footballer. Like, come on, it's just disgraceful, really. And going back to Sancho, Samuel, he's become such an enigma. I think I'm starting to see supporters just really lose patience with him now. They've wanted him to succeed and they've tried to defend him, but he's just running out of excuses. My lunch piece the other day on Sancho was he's probably got the next 6 weeks to kind of save his United career up until the end of the season, but he's just simply not done enough, has he? In the absence of Rashford, he got offered starts on the left and he's just not done enough.